Commissioner Todd Fowler will give us our invocation tonight, after which, if you would please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, we just thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. We thank you for the city that we live in and all the blessings that we have. We ask you to be with us as we deliberate tonight, and just be with us and let us do the things that are pleasing to you and pleasing to the people of the city of Johnson City. And just thank you so much for the opportunity we have to be here, and the blessings that the people are of our city to us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go off.
Mr. Peterson?
All right, your first order of business is consideration of the minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting held on Thursday, July the 6th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? No? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler,
I will abstain.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
And I will abstain as well.
Next order of business is proclamations. We have a group of U16 young ladies here that have been very successful in their soccer adventures, and we would like to recognize the 2017 FC Dallas Tri U16 girls team. And Coach Berry.
I don't do that.
I don't know. I've seen you work.
They just keep coming.
You've probably seen most of them.
I know a few of them too well. I'll let that one play. Barely made it back.
Go. All right, we have a very special group of young ladies here today who've just been very successful representing our region. I know we have a kind of a mixed group from all around, but got quite a few from Johnson City. I think we have enough of these. If we don't worry. We got a great copy machine. You know. Not a problem. So, whereas, led by Coach Matt Berry, FC Dallas Tri, including Kiara Alley, Emma Arnold, Abby Atchley, Paige Carlson, Claire Chapman, Brooke Coggins, Cammie Davison, Savannah Fields, Kelsey Jones, Emily Lane, Katie Love, Julie Luna, Sarah Luna, Chloe Mount, Rachel Phillips, Chloe Salyer, Allie Torbett, Jessica Upman, and Rachel Wallen, representing Dobbins Bennett, Science Hill. Who put Dobbins Bennett first on that? I'm here. Tennessee. Tennessee High, Honeacre, Elizabethton, Greenville, University School, Sutherland South, Daniel Boone, and Volunteer High Schools, which is awesome. And whereas this team of dedicated girls won both the Tennessee State Championship and the Region 3 tournament en route to being one of just 4 16-under girl teams to compete in the U.S. Youth Soccer National President's Cup, July 12th through 16th, 2017. And if I understand correctly, placed third, correct? That's in the country. That's awesome. And whereas, not only did FC Dallas Tri finish third overall in the national tournament, but their character was recognized by the officials who presented them with the Sportsmanship Award. And that's worth as much as a third place finish. I'll tell you that right now. Thanks for representing us well. Now, therefore, I, David Temita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby congratulate the 2017 FC Dallas Tri 16-under girls team on a remarkable season during which they successfully and admirably represented our area on a national stage. We're proud of all of you. This is where you clap. So what I'd like to do is just take a second and let everybody introduce themselves, okay? And then you have to pick one of you to sing the team song.
Matt Berry, I was the head coach.
Allie Torbett, Emily Lane, Kiara Alley, Katie Love,
Savannah Fields,
Rachel Phillips.
Claire Chapman, Rachel Wallen,
Jolia Luna,
Kelsey Jones,
Jessica Upham, Paige Carlson, Abby Atchley, Brooke Coggins,
Chloe Mount,
Emma Arnold,
It's a good thing it's a cordless mic.
And I'm just in the way. Again, we're very proud of you. We have, again, we'll pass these out. If we don't have enough, we'll get you some more. We'll pass them out, but then we'd like, we'll give you a minute for a photo opportunity. And if there's anybody you want to say hi to on TV, go ahead and do that too. I think my mother and about 3 other are watching, so.
Start with the girls.
Congratulations.
Now, by accepting these proclamations, you have to stay for the remainder of the meeting.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. It's a really exciting meeting. A lot of zoning.
Yeah, beer permits.
Not tonight. No. Come back for another one.
West Maple, so.
Okay. You would have interest in that.
Yeah, it's directly affecting me.
How you doing?
Really good.
Three extra, there are 3 that aren't
There
here.
are 2 that are not here. Correct, Chris, 2. 3. 3 that are not.
There you go.
Good job, ladies. Keep up the good work.
Yep.
Stay healthy.
Please.
But if you,
Scoot you in a little bit. But everybody in China did. All of the people in China did that to each other. They came up to me, they must have thought it was like a sumo wrestler or something, because everybody wanted their picture with him at Tiananmen Square. I mean, just, they'd come up and... But people came up to me with his picture. It was crazy.
getting back under control is clear.
That people would come and just stand between us and get their pictures.
Personally, he doesn't like having pictures of neighbors near as much as I do. I think they're a lot longer than
Yeah. Sir Catherine was redheaded and about 5'11", and they just, everybody
Got one more.
Two-thirds the size of our primary chamber. It is teeny tiny. It's interesting.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Good to see you, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations.
No, it's good. Very good. We're happy for you.
girls.
I got a ball over.
Soccer players.
There you go. If there's a song that they can sing now, is that?
Tell you what, you wouldn't want to play in their cars. That's how they broke all the three times. Broke the
So you could do some pavers, and what the school wants the property in the back to be a straight shot of the building itself.
Where's Hayes? Hayes, here.
One more. Lead the way, Kelly.
But you could do a big.
Congratulations.
Thank you all very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Thank you. Congratulations.
well, I think everything's going to clear out here.
Yep. Yeah. Took care of a lot of those people.
They killed the audience.
Yep.
And now in front of an empty room, what's our next?
And what are we doing next?
That's what's going to happen.
Oh, we had a few folks.
Oh, really?
Mayor, your next order of business is consideration of a temporary occasion license for the Blue Plum Organization to sell beer at the Founders After Five event on July 28th. The appropriate reviews having been made, finding no disqualifying factors.
Very good. Is the applicant here tonight? Oh. Yes, the applicant is here tonight.
I just got a text, Jenny Luckmiller got called out of town and she sent me a text. Well, I stand for Blue Plum and I'll be glad to.
Jenny's not here, I'm not voting for it.
Do I have a motion to decline? Yeah. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Move approval.
Second.
And I guess just state your name and address for the record.
Diana Cantler, 1911 Sherwood Drive.
Thanks. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of 2 temporary occasion licenses for the Downtown Johnson City Foundation to sell beer on August 4th and 18th at Founders After Five events to be held at Founders Park. The appropriate reviews having been made, finding no disqualifying factors.
We've got the appropriate person in front of us for this one, so I'd
you.
move approval.
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cantler, while you're there, you might mention the progress of the sign. I think it's,
I hope y'all have driven by there. It is absolutely beautiful. I've been, it's amazing how big it is and the process that it takes to put that sign up. But the Snyder sign says it's one of the largest signs that they have done in all of Northeast Tennessee. And they are moving right along and putting up one section at a time, welding it all on. And I know you're not surprised to know that it's not square. And so they're having to get up there 60 feet off the ground and making sure that everything looks even and everything. So it's moving along, and we're planning a lighting of it sometime in the near future.
great.
Thank
From
you.
what I've seen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson?
The next order of business is consideration of 6 appointments to the Tree and Landscaping Board. The staff has prepared a list of applicants, which is before you in your packet.
Mayor, do you mind if I ask Mr. Penzola to step forward? I'd like a little bit of information. We've got 6 recommendations and a lot more applicants in here than that. I'm kind of curious how staff came up with the recommendations, who made the decision about which ones to recommend.
I do not know the answer as to how we arrived at that. Basically, he was getting inquiries from people about reforming the board because it had gone, become non-functional. And so as a result of that, we re-energized and advertised. But these are probably folks who inquired of Pat Walding, our urban forester. Probably were the ones that were the most vocal to them, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so it was Pat who made the determination of the 6 that ought to be
Yes.
given prime consideration.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think it's great that we have 17 people that want to be on this thing, which is unbelievable. But we've got to pick 6 is the hard part, so.
And I think there was a recommendation to stagger the board, but I would say for the time being, the bylaws state 3-year terms for
whole thing.
simplicity's sake, let's just make them all 3-year terms. And thank you, for
Yes.
your interest in this. It was kind of stunning. We have a lot of boards and committees we count on a lot, and sometimes it's a challenge to get folks to step up. So apparently this is something of great interest, and I hope we see some good things coming out of it.
Another question for Mr. Penzola. I guess the bylaws were amended, what, in 2002? That made it a 6-person board, which is kind of a small
Yes.
board for most of our committees and boards. would it be beneficial if we increased the size of the board and made it more like a 9-person board?
Commissioner, I'm not sure about the protocol as to how to adjust the bylaws, if you can do that tonight, or do we have to bring that back? I do not know the answer to that, but that would be up to you as to how large you would like that committee.
I would suggest we go ahead and go with the 6, and we see what comes out of this. And if it's a very active, very engaged, very productive board, we can take a look at the bylaws and change them. But we probably want to spend a little more time than we're willing to spend tonight on the fly to do that, make sure we
And there's
get it
probably
done
some
right.
value in some residual continued interest in serving, so that in 3 years when terms end, you haven't exhausted the 17 people who have an interest in serving on it either.
Unless they're on something else, so.
Would suggest maybe to keep it at 6 and to see if we can't energize it in such a way that it becomes a productive board rather than just a board. And that's what we would prefer to see. And it sometimes is difficult when you have a lot of people.
I would like to make a suggestion or a recommendation after reading through all of these, because we have a lot of people that are forestry people that have been on things before. And I know there are people that are interested in the trees, but there are some people that have more qualifications looking through theirs. So looking through the ones that seem to be the most qualified for that would be Giebner and Dockery and Sorgel and Boris and Terry and Clark are the ones that have had experience in either landscape architecture, or they've been on a forestry service, or they have grown fruit trees in Florida and managed those kind of things, and all just looking through, and that would be my recommendation of the 6.
Is that a motion?
I guess I will move it as a motion to have those 6, and that's just from my reading.
What is the pleasure of the commission? Do we want to vote on a group, or do we want to just all pick 6?
I had 5 of the 6, but I would like to add Judith Hammond because of her expertise in our issues with bees, as a master gardener as well. I mean, she's well qualified and brings a level of understanding about a real issue that we have, and, what opportunities we might have in the city to pollinate, to create pollinator gardens and things like that. I think she brings a great value there, so I'm in 90% agreement with her.
And I don't
That
mind
is- that
taking
doesn't
one of those
quite come
people
to
off. That was just
90%.
my 6 from that. So if there's
So
somebody
it
you want to
doesn't quite come to
remove.
90%.
That's 87 and a half, I think, and I'm doing it in my head.
We got the analytical people down here.
Who's counting?
Right, yes.
No, I think each of us are going to see it just a little bit differently. I think I have 3 of the 6 that you did, and Judith was not one that I'd looked at that same way. Perhaps I should have. So I would say, Mayor, let's just go down individually and poll who wants whom.
And the top 6 will get in?
Yeah, then
Okay.
Ms. Jennings can.
Okay.
And just for clarification, because the recommendation was for 3 3-year terms and 3 2-year terms, we're going to say all 3-year
All
terms.
3-year terms,
Okay.
correct. Do we need to, that's a recommendation, we don't need to have any formal action on that, correct? Yes? Okay. Pick 6.
All right.
It's like
I said
Hardee's.
mine. Did you get them? You want me to do them
I
again?
I
Do 'em
did, I
again.
marked them, but I will repeat them
Yeah.
back just to make sure. Gibner, Dockery, Sorgel, Boris, Terry, and Clark.
Yes.
And Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Robbins,
Which one?
the 2,
Guy or
both
Janet?
of them actually, Janet Robbins and Guy Robbins.
Oh, little curveball there.
Michael Clark, Marty Olson, and those will be the only ones I'm gonna put out there.
There you go.
Commissioner Wise.
Gibner, Sorgel, Dockery, Hammond, Clark. I think that's 5. Boris.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Gibner, Dockery, Sorgel, Hammond, Terry, and Clark.
Mayor Temita.
Gibner, Dockery, Sortle, Burris, Terry, and Hammond.
We have 4 for Gibner, 4 for Dockery, 4 for Sorgel, 4 for Clark, 3 for Hammond, 3 for Boris, 3 for Terry. Let me go down the list here, make sure.
This may look easy at home, but I find it amazing that no matter what we throw at Janet Jennings, she manages to make it organized on a dime like that. So this-
I have a good little checklist here. So we have 4 with 4 votes, I'm sorry, and 3 with 3 votes.
So we got 4 that are in, and we need to pick 2 of those 3.
2 of the 3. The 3 are Judith Hammond, James Boris, and Terry Thomas.
So we each pick 2 of those 3. Correct?
Are you prepared for that?
Are we prepared for that?
Are we prepared? That's the question.
You want to go down the roll again?
Sure, let's,
Okay.
it worked so well the first go around.
And who are the 3 we're picking again? That-
Judith Hammond,
Uh-huh.
James Boris, Thomas Terry. So Commissioner Fowler,
Boris and Terry.
Commissioner Van Brocklin,
Having great esteem for our vice mayor and her assessment of people, Hammonds, please.
You single-shotting?
I'm single shot.
That's like 2 votes.
That's how I vote in an election that involves me will do the same.
Okay.
Commissioner Wise.
Well, then I'll single-shot Hammond as well.
It's the Van Brocklin.
I'm going to Van Brocklin it.
Okay, Vice Mayor Brock
Hammond and Terry.
and Mayor Temita.
Hammond and Terry.
Okay, it's going to be Hammond and Terry.
And y'all better do some really amazing stuff after all this, right? And thank you. Again, it's not a reflection on any of the other 11 applicants. We hope you'll stay engaged. We'll hope you'll apply for other things. You don't have to be a member of that board to attend the meetings, so attend and provide some input. And I feel like a broken record. I've been doing this for 4 years now, but it's also helpful if you call somebody. There were the majority of the people on this list. I couldn't tell you who they were if they were standing on my foot. So it makes it a lot easier to support somebody if you've just made a brief contact. So again, I believe I say this every time, but especially if they're 17 for 6, it would be helpful.
And to echo that, don't let that discourage you from future application. The year over year, some years you'll have 6 people for 6 seats, some years you'll have 17 for 6, and some years you'll have 2 and be struggling to find the other 4.
Yeah.
So this is not a rejection of the other 11, it's just math.
Mayor, at one point, we had some conversation about including on the application that contact with commissioners regarding interest was appropriate and actually desirable. Did we ever do that?
To my knowledge, we have not, so let's follow up and do that. I'd agree.
I think that's been done, but I'll double check.
If you would.
Yes,
That'd
sir. Yes, sir.
Very good.
Your next
Think
item.
so? Yep. Yeah, doing it by-
Your next item of business is consideration of 3 appointments to the Johnson City Regional Planning Commission. 2 of these need to be city residents, and 1 needs to be someone who lives beyond the corporate limits, but within the Regional Planning Commission jurisdiction.
Very good.
Mr. Peterson, clarification, these are all mayoral appointments, are they not?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Angela.
And in that case, for the 2 seats for residents of the city, Dr. Timothy Zients, whose name I got right this time, instead of Zajunk, as I did last time. Has done an awesome job, incredible job, been a great leader on that. He's only served one term, so we'll put him on for another. Mr. Henning had resigned from the commission, or from the Planning Commission. We thank him for his service. He was a very valuable member of that. We wish him well, and hope that if it comes to pass that he can come back and take that activity up again. We'd love to see it come back. We understand it was work-related, and very well in his endeavors. I would like to nominate Stacy Wild, who is a member of our BZA right now, has been in front of us several times for several positions, seems highly qualified. He's doing a great job on the BZA.
Just a point of order, one of these two seats is the mayoral designate, and they're all mayoral appointments, correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Hennig's vacancy is the seat that you pick as your designate.
Correct, and that would be...
Would that be Ms. Wild?
That'd be, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we were all clear.
Yeah. All right, and then for the member who is a non-city resident but living within the urban growth boundary, we do not have an application. We will have one soon, but I've had a verbal application and request, and I've agreed to recommend retired Major General Gary Harrell for that seat. He's highly qualified, a great diversifier to this board, will represent his area well, and those would be my three recommendations.
Very good. Your next order of business is to make one appointment to the Johnson
Point
City
of
Housing
order,
Authority.
do we have
I think we
to
have to.
ratify his appointments, or?
I guess it would be a matter of practice. I don't think it's required, but certainly you can, yes.
If it's all the same, I'd rather have
Yes. I'm sorry, excuse me.
commission consensus on that, yeah. So, Ms. Jennings, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Broecklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, your next order of business is consideration of a single appointment to the Johnson City Housing Authority Board.
All right. Do we have any nominations?
I would nominate Jeff Keeling.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have an application for Jeff?
We do, it came in after the packet was prepared.
Okay. Well, it's been moved and seconded. Have known Jeff for a long time. I think he would make an outstanding representative on the Housing Authority Board. I've had the opportunity to sit through a lot of their meetings in past years. Unfortunately, not in the last couple of years because they moved their meeting date. If you move it back to Thursdays, I'll be with you a little bit more often, Ms. Trent. But I think that Jeff has a tremendous knowledge of community, both through his work with the press initially, then with News and Neighbor and the Business Journal, and then now with Appalachian, I believe he's with. So he is somebody that I think knows the community well. I think he has a heart for those who need help in obtaining housing and understands the impediments to it, and probably will be pretty good about coming up with some processes to facilitate making affordable housing available in this community, and I would recommend it.
Any other comments? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Broecklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of 3 appointments to the Johnson City Development Authority.
All righty. We have, let me flip back up here. So we have Kip Parks, whose term is expiring. Trevor Tatzloff was appointed to fill the remaining term of Grant Summers' seat. So that is Yeah, but that's one of the seats we're appointing tonight, so it would have been Grant's expiring term today. Sorry, I just didn't say that right. So, do we have any,
Mayor, I move that we appoint Ms. Jody Jones, Mr. Kip Parks, and Ms. Timber Aldridge.
Second.
have a motion and a second? Any discussion? That's certainly a solid board. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of street closures, the first being a request from Mountain States Health Alliance to accommodate the Fit for Life Glow Run on Friday, August the 11th, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. The streets to be closed are included in your packet on the map. We have reviewed it and find no disqualifying factors, therefore recommending approval.
I would say as the applicant here, but I guess by your shirt, that answer is yes. Yeah. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Very good. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes. Well, while you have a moment, if you'd like to tell us about your event.
We're going to have a Fit for Life 5K Glow Run, August the 11th from 8 p.m. until the last finish crosses the line, and it's to promote health and wellness in the community and our team members.
So by keeping it open, that would allow me to participate in it, correct? Yes, okay.
How do people sign up?
Open it.
Last year, we had 309. As of this morning, we had 157 signed up.
So, I mean, how do people sign up?
Oh, how do people? I'm sorry. They sign up online through a, if you go to the Goose Chase, there's an app or a link.
Can they go into the wellness center there and
They
sign
can.
up?
Yes, for sure.
Well, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
And next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, starting on my left, Commissioner Fowler, anything you'd like to remove for individual discussion?
Nothing.
Vice Mayor Brown?
I'd like to pull A1 just for some comments. And I had something else, but it's gone, so you can go for it.
Somebody else will pick it up. Commissioner Van Brocklin?
A3, please.
A3. And Commissioner Wise?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, Mr. Peterson, A1.
Mr. Willis, if you would take the questions, please, sir.
Good evening.
Good
Evening.
evening, Mr. Willis. Thank you so much. I think what is notable here in the proposal for renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield is that we are not having to raise our premiums
Correct.
at all. And really, what I wanted to do was just compliment our staff, all of our employees, all of our covered people under the plan, and the hard work that they've been doing, working with our wellness program. We now have an on-site clinic that really helps with a lot of primary care things. And, you know, with the partnership with the city and the employees, we're able to manage healthcare costs very well. And so I just wanted to compliment you and particularly all the staff for their partnerships and their commitment to taking care of themselves and then getting the necessary medical treatment early on, which is what we encourage, certainly through the wellness program. And I think we're on the right track, and so this is a good news story right here. A lot of people are sitting in these same places saying, you know, we've had an 8% increase in premiums, but we're not. And so, anything you want to comment on?
Well, it's all about continuous improvement, and we've made some changes this year. In January, we made some pharmacy changes, some changes to the wellness program mid-year that were very well received by the employee base, and they continue to support our efforts. So we appreciate the health committee's efforts and also staff to continue to offer a fantastic benefit package for our employees. And with their participation in the wellness incentives, we're able to keep costs low, which in turn saves the taxpayers dollars. So
I think one
Thank
of
you for
the
your
real
comments.
added things too is, I mean, we have a health, what we used to call it the Health Insurance Committee, now it's more of the Health Committee, made up of employees who really study what's going on and make recommendations on necessary changes and tweaks along the way, which has really been a great benefit.
I would have a question along those lines. How much of the premium staying the same would you attribute to health and wellness of employees, and how much of it would you attribute to other systemic changes like the clinic and pharmacy changes that may just be reducing the cost but not reducing the encounters or use?
Commissioner Wise, I think it's a combination
Okay.
of all those factors. The fact that we're self-insured, obviously, we have much more control over costs because we're not as impacted by the fully insured market. So it's really a combination of all those factors. And I'd also like to recognize the schools representatives, Pam Cox and Tara Spencer, who also are a critical part of our committee as the schools are covered under our plan as well.
Mr. Wallace, can you just tell me the thinking behind the 1-year renewal instead of the 3-year?
That would have been my question as well.
Oh,
Basically, with the uncertainty in the market currently with replace and repeal or just replace, certainly that has an effect on all plans, not just the marketplace offerings. So that's something that we were very cognizant of. And we felt as though at this point in time next year, we'll be better positioned to seek a longer-term agreement.
I think we might be, but the question is, will it cost us more by delaying? Because it seems to me that the way that the uncertainty is going to shake out is going to be more expensive health care for everybody. And that means that we're going to be paying more as well.
Well, certainly that could possibly be true, but we feel as though we're taking a calculated risk because there's also some market dynamics that could very well come to play next year that currently are not on the table for us, some reference-based pricing models, and without getting into all that level of detail, that's not available to us this year. We feel with probably a 70-80% degree of confidence that those items could be on the table for us next year.
so you would think the path of least resistance would be down?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
But it bears repeating,
Yeah.
other governmental bodies in
Yeah.
our region have confronted healthcare costs, often with the initial number being a 7-digit increase. $1 million more than they spent the year before, and we're talking about something remaining flat. And for everybody who's made a contribution to that being possible, thank you, because that is a significant contrast to what
Yeah.
many of our neighbors are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to the commission for giving us the flexibility to, rather than follow the pack, attempt to lead it. And we appreciate your commitment to us to give us that flexibility.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How many years in a row has this been without a premium increase?
7, I believe.
4 years without a premium increase.
I only have 2 years of history, so
Well,
forgive me.
I know, that wasn't a fair question. I thought about that as I asked it. But it just
glad you
amplifies what
maintained
all
things
of
as
you
they
all
were.
have just said. You all have given us the opportunity and the tools to work with. And we've gone 4 years in a row with no premium increase, which is a significant benefit to our employees, but it's an even greater benefit to the government and the taxpayers in that we're really controlling costs. This stuff really works, and we've got some really dedicated employees that understand it and are a part of improving this system as we go forward. It's our health care spend on a year is, what, $6 million a year?
Just north of that, yes.
Just north of $6 million a year. So, you know, like some of our fellow local governments have seen 8, 10, 15% increases. I mean, you see, you're at $500,000 to $1 million a year really quick in terms of increases with a fully insured plan.
And we have a very healthy health insurance trust fund that is building when, you know, we're able to add to that each year because of just you know, the claims versus premiums. So we have reserves in place when we need it. So
We look forward to Vice Mayor Brock's comment about the Employee Health Center. We look forward in October and November to be able to share some return on investment data with you regarding that, as we will have a full 12 months under our belt. We recently added Saturday hours, and the utilization there has been greater than 50% right out of the gate, so we're...
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And feel free to be like a consultant and just take credit for all of it.
Okay, well, I can't do that, but thank you.
Give him the $50,000 that goes with it.
Thank
You
you.
need a binder.
All right, A3.
Sherry, I probably didn't need to haul you up on this one. I mostly want to make a comment, but it does have to do with emails that you and I had going back and forth a little bit earlier today. As the commission recalls, I voted against utilizing community development block grant dollars to fund Holston Habitat for Humanity's approach to providing housing. And the thing that concerned me was that we're providing money for them to do rehabs, but then they're turning around and they're selling the property instead of donating it to a needy family. And in the past, we've used community development block grant monies to take care of homeowners who then retain their property and able to use their property, and there's no cost to them. So I still don't really agree with this approach, but what I emailed Ms. Trent about earlier today was whether or not this project was midstream. Because if it wasn't midstream, I would have asked to pull this and voted individually, and I would have voted against it again. Understanding that we're midstream in this project, and please clarify if I'm wrong, I will not pull it from the consent agenda. I will vote favorably for the consent agenda, and it'll move forward. But if you want to lend a couple comments, I know you indicated to me what the Housing and Community Development Board's thought process was behind this.
Their thought is to expand housing, not just for homeowners, but to try to encourage home ownership for low-income individuals. So both of these homes are, a good, the rehab is almost finished on Wichita. There's one on Chestnut Street that when they got into it, it was a lot worse shape than what they thought, so they've had to tear it down and are rebuilding it. So they're good, maybe halfway finished with that one as well. So we signed the contracts in April, so they've not really had a lot of time to get the projects finished. And we knew that would probably happen, but we wanted to get the money out there and get the projects going. So the model with homeowner rehab is, we don't make them pay that back because most of these people are elderly and they can't afford to put a new roof on or a heat pump. But this is a different type of project. These will all be sold to low-income households that want to own a home that maybe couldn't have. Their payments would never be more than 30% of their income, so it's an excellent opportunity for a family to get in a home that couldn't have otherwise. So,
Could I ask a question? Are the prices that you charge for the homes adjusted by what money we put into it, so that
yes, and they will be adjusted to
those?
what the homeowner can afford as well. So we will have a 3-year lien, just like on the homeowner rehab. The portion that we put in the home, there'll be a 3-year lien on it and forgiven after 3 years. So that's a direct benefit to the homeowner. And the funds are recycled. Once Habitat sells the home, the house, the money goes back into a fund, and more homes are built for low-income people. I mean, that's their...
But my question is, if Habitat built 2 homes side by side identical, the money from the city goes into this home, the Habitat model without that goes into this home. Are you going to charge the same thing for those homes?
Well, they're 2 different type homes. So, they do it individually, and I don't have him here to help me out, Art. But they, like if we put $25,000 in each house, that will be like a soft second on each house. So the homeowners won't pay that.
I think the question that's being asked that I would want to echo, though, is if the house A that Habitat did without and these aren't city dollars, these are community development block grant
Right.
dollars, just for those who may be watching and wondering what we're doing. The first house has no CDBG money in it, and Habitat says it's $100,000. And an identical house next door is a Habitat house that has $15,000 worth of CDBG grant in it. Is it going to be 85 or is it going to be 100?
They base them on what they can afford,
Well,
so.
that's their payments are never more than 30% of their income, but income
And it would never
can-
go over 30 years as far
Right.
as the term, so you may end up, they start with the appraised value, and then they put the second on there for what we've put in it. And then, like, if the normal payment would have been $600, but this homeowner can't pay but $300, so they'll have it stretched out to where, it's only $300. So the ending value is a little kind of hard to say.
Sadly, this is the
understand.
kind of thing that the more you say, the more.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and I understand how the
Habitat
Habitat for Humanity model works, and I'm fully supportive of it. I guess I would echo Commissioner Van Brocklin's concern that CDBG dollars may have a greater utility to the city, particularly as the carrot in the dwelling standards stick scenario, where we're telling you, you've got to do something, your roof is caving in, but we can help you, we have CBDG dollars that are going to fix your roof. And that's a very different scenario than the Habitat model, which is bringing a new family into a rehabbed or new house, which is a commendable mission. There's nothing about these questions are anti-Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
It's just a question of whether, as stewards of these dollars, as the city, whether that's the best thing to do with CDBG dollars. And like Commissioner Van Brocklin, I'm going to vote for the consent agenda, but I'm not done asking about that, because I think I think there may be better ways to leverage those dollars, particularly as it relates to the dwelling standards enforcement issues the city's involved in.
So you're saying that it's not a price adjustment to hit their debt to income ratio, you're just going to stretch the mortgage out longer,
And it wouldn't be
right?
more than 30 years, so. that's-
Okay.
So it's a moving target.
So it could be a 20,
essentially.
it could be a 10, 15, 20.
And that'll all be,
30.
figured out before they close, so
But
exactly
that
what.
pricing, but there's no
They will always
credit.
be sold under the appraised value. I mean, they would never, the appraised value, and then our grant would be off of that, so,
for 3 years.
for the 3 years.
The home buyer is paying the CDBG money back.
Yeah.
And
To
it's-
Habitat.
And it's going back to Habitat.
And they may be paying it back, assuming Habitat recovers the full cost of the house. There is a scenario in which they theoretically might not.
May not, these are in.
But that's a different, that's a discussion about the Habitat model. We're talking about the CBDG dollars.
And all these projects were, brought to us, and, the advisory board reviewed them, and they voted on them, so that's why it was brought to the.
Philosophically, on the city side, though, we just need to revisit
We
that.
need to have that discussion.
And you'll have a
Which-
chance to make some
which-
comments in a minute with the.
Which advisory board made the decision? Was it
The
housing
city-
or was it
the housing-
community development?
It's the Housing and Community Development Advisory
Okay,
Board.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll keep me from asking you the same question when we have a public hearing here shortly.
All right. Any other discussion?
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Tomita.
Yes.
This takes us to ordinances on your agenda, the first being ordinance number 4640-17, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled "An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from R5 high-density residential to B4 Planned Arterial Business District, certain property located at 3407 and 3409 Timberlake Road, ready for your consideration on first reading. Ms. Carrier, if you would explain the ordinance, please.
Yes, sir. The Johnson City Regional Planning Commission unanimously approved this at our June meeting. Petitioner is Mr. Jerome Penzick, and the proposal is to utilize the property for the outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles. Concept plan is required for the ordinance. The petitioner is not proposing to construct any additional structures on the property. His plans to park boats and recreational vehicles in the flat area on the westernmost portion of the property. The area is to be utilized for storage, and it's significantly buffered from view by thick tree and vegetation growth along the perimeter of the property and by a large berm to the west of the property. If the rezoning of the property is approved, the city commission, the petitioner would have to receive a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals to be allowed to have outdoor storage on the property. The property is currently split zoned. Half of his lot is actually B4, and he does have storage on that portion of the property. This other half he would like to store as well. It is located in the floodplain, so there's not much he can do as far as building on that property. No one spoke in opposition to this during the Planning Commission meeting. The land use plan has designated this area as being suitable for commercial uses. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I was going to show you, right here is the specific lot that currently has storage on, and this is the other area, the berm. And the foliage along this way is here and along Timber Lake. This is the view along Timber Lake of what you can see of that property. And this is the view from Bristol Highway. As you can see, the berm is protecting that specific lot.
Angie,
Yes, sir.
back up to your first picture, please.
The first. Sorry. Oh, the other one?
Yes,
Sorry.
ma'am. One minute.
The other first.
There's the other first picture.
What does that silver line represent?
I believe that is the blue line. That's the floodplain area.
Okay.
And down in the lower right-hand corner is Bristol Highway?
Yes, ma'am.
And where would, East Mountain View Road be?
This is Timber Lake up through here, along this way. Bristol Highway is along this way, and then you have your state of the ramp
Going
up
to
through
State
there.
of Franklin, that's the exit off of Bristol Highway.
Timber Lake would be in the upper left-hand corner.
Right,
there,
that's-
Frank.
Are there any are there homes close to this?
It's mostly farmland. It's open area right through there.
Well, I mean, if you zoomed out just a little bit, what it mostly means there is, yes, some
Yes, there's residential
Okay.
areas, yeah.
Right back here.
Across the
Yes,
street?
around
Up
there.
above Mountain View.
Do you have any details about the neighborhood meeting that was held when, and did neighbors show up? How it was
The
advertised?
neighborhood meeting was conducted on June 6th. We provide the labels for the petitioner to send out. No one spoke against that, and we didn't. The petitioner is here if you would like to ask him as far as how his neighborhood meeting went.
What time was that held?
What time?
What time?
Sir, I'm not.
And did the petitioner come up? I'd like to know more about the neighborhood meeting.
If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Can't talk. Jerome Stewart Penzick. He has a throat illness. I'll be answering for him.
Okay, very good.
Translator.
So where did you have the neighborhood meeting?
It's like being in.
Over the phone with one neighbor who has 15 acres on the north side of our property, before Mountain View. On Mountain View is the residential area. The one neighbor who just got out of surgery, so on his knees. So we had to have a phone conversation.
Okay, so it was really a phone conversation with one
Yes.
neighbor?
Yeah, we're friends with him. Samuel Humphreys.
And, okay. Was it advertised in the Timberlake area so that people had the opportunity to come to a place to meet?
Yes, there was a sign out front with a phone number and an ordinance number.
But was anything mailed to the list that city staff gave you?
Samuel Humphreys was the only one in proximity for that meeting.
Ms. Carrier? The request is to go to B4, which is business. Do you have a map that shows the zoning of the properties around it?
And while you're doing that, I guess, how far out do we generate the list for?
200 feet.
So Dr. Humphrey's property probably would be the only thing within 200 feet of that. Okay.
Yes,
So the
sir.
list would not have been, you'd have given him one envelope. Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's not really a list, it's a name.
Yeah.
So everything adjacent is residential.
The
zone.
red is the B4.
This is his property, this is Humphreys here.
Ms. Carrier, let me ask you a question while the applicant's here, we can get his comments as well. You know, to me, the one thing that would cause me potentially to vote against this is people don't like seeing vehicles parked up alongside a road in their neighborhood. You've indicated that you've looked at this, you feel there's sufficient berm that's there to protect against view. What I need to know is whether or not that berm's going to be maintained and whether or not there'll be a promise, whether or not we, number one, have the opportunity to ask the petitioner to promise to maintain a visual barrier. And number two, if we don't, in particular, whether or not they have intent and would promise to maintain that visual barrier.
Staff has had conversation with the petitioner in reference to the berm and the foliage in that specific area. And since the berm and the foliage is within TDOT right-of-way, that within the concept plan, that the petitioner add his own type 1 buffer that is along his property that would contain that specific buffering from that property for the usage of storage vehicles, and he has agreed to do that.
Okay, so do we have the opportunity then to have a concept plan for this particular rezoning request?
Yes, sir.
So it'll be binding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Explain a type 1 barrier, please.
A type 1 barrier is the foliage that would cover it both winter and summer, so it wouldn't be the evergreen that falls in the winter and you can't see through.
All right, very good.
That's
what I need to know.
Yes.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So did I understand you correctly, the berm is in the TDOT right away? So that
Yes, sir.
couldn't be removed anyway, right? But it could be removed by TDOT.
Right.
That's-
About that.
So we just got to make sure the concept plan has a buffer on both sides. Okay.
And
And we have 2 more readings of this ordinance, so we can make sure.
next reading will be public input.
Right.
So,
Yes.
and is there,
Yeah, for anyone who's watching at home, this is first reading. Public comment is on second reading, which will happen in the meeting on August the 3rd.
as well as the concept plan.
and is that noticed on the sign that they know that there's public hearing on that date?
Yes, ma'am.
If we pass it
That's
tonight?
reasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's advertised
Okay.
in the paper.
All right.
Move approval on first reading.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Tomita.
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4642-17, which is your supplemental budget ordinance. An ordinance appropriating additional funds to the various departments and divisions of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, with the additional revenue from local, state, and federal sources is ready for your consideration on first reading. Janet, if you would explain the ordinance, please, ma'am.
I'll be happy to. This is our annual, I call it housekeeping ordinance. We look at additional grant funds we've received during the year. We also include any amendments that the school board approved throughout the year. During this past year, we did receive some additional fire department grant money, so we want to recognize those expenditures and make sure they're properly covered, as well as recognize those additional revenues of $104,000. We did recognize the transfer of $517,000 of the 2% hotel motel tax over to the debt service fund to pay the debt service on the ETSU Fine Arts Center borrowing. In addition, the monies that were dedicated out of the Economic Development Reserve are being recognized in this ordinance. Those were all approved during your budget discussions last year, but this is just to formalize them. We had $70,000 that was included last year in last year's budget in the Public Works operating budget for work on the Tweetsie Trail paving. We need to keep all of those expenditures in the capital project fund, so we just kind of did a little housekeeping on those and moved those over to the capital project fund to keep those with the Tweetsie Trail. That does not change anything within the general fund, it just moves it from one line to the other. As far as the school board, all of those amendments were approved by the Board of Education throughout the year. I would note that they are reflecting in the budget, not in reality, but in this budget, drawing down fund balance, an additional $2 million in the general purpose school fund. I really don't, after looking at the revenues, I don't think that's going to happen, but in anticipation of the extra expenditures, that's what they reflected in the amendments. The Freedom Hall Fund, I'm not showing any difference on the bottom line. However, due to the mix of shows, the revenues and expenditures are both going to exceed budget, so we just want to do that little housekeeping matter. The PEP Debt Service Fund, we have a nice fund balance in that, but we had some additional bond payments just due to the timing when we did the actual borrowing for the new roofs and for some paving. So that's just a matter of timing on a debt service payment, but there are ample monies there to cover that. That, in a nutshell, covers the housekeeping matters. I'll be happy to address any questions you have, and we do need to have a public hearing.
Have any questions for Ms. Jennings? If not, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody here to speak for or against or otherwise? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Tamita.
Yes.
Very good. Your next ordinance for consideration is ordinance number 4643-17. This sets your certified tax rate for the FY18 fiscal year, the FY17 tax year. An ordinance adopting tax rates for the 2017 tax year. The rates certified by the state for Washington, Carter, and Sullivan County are as follows. Washington County, $1.89. Carter County, $1.84. Sullivan County, $1.84. I would point out to you that Carter and Sullivan County were just reappraised, and Washington County was done
14.
2 years, 14.
Carter was last year, Sullivan this year.
Okay.
Therefore, they equalize all of the rates in a year in which one of the counties reappraises.
And were values coming back up 14? Our Washington County values went way down over the prior assessment. Are Carter and Sullivan counties seeing them come back out of that dip? Is that the
I will
difference?
defer to Janet on this.
Sullivan did increase, therefore, to equalize the rate, because you don't want to collect more taxes as the result of a reappraisal, the rate decreased 5 cents in order to keep the same billing.
So it went
We
up.
still get the growth.
Yep.
This may be confusing to some citizens. There is no tax increase. There's an adjustment in the rate, and would you kind of explain that?
Correct.
So everybody truly can understand it?
Correct. The rate for Washington County is increasing 2 cents. That is not a tax increase. In overall, probably due to adjustments from when there are disputes as far as property values, and they present those to the county or they present those to the state, and those values, and it could be companies, it could be individuals, when they go get their, they want to get an adjustment in their assessment. If the total of all the assessments decrease as the result of these requests that are turned into the county, then the overall tax rate's going to increase because you get to keep the same billing as you received in the prior year. Since they readjusted all of the rates, the 2 cent increase would indicate that the total assessed value for Washington County, in fact, did slightly decrease. So to keep us whole, the overall rate increased. We will still have the same billing.
I'm sure you'll agree now, that's clear as mud.
Well,
I got it.
we've had a significant amount of adjustments
Yeah.
just through this past year. I think
That's
about
helpful.
$200,000 of downward adjustments through.
No one's tax bill is going to change, the
gonna
bottom
stay the same
line,
as
the bottom
last year.
line. but
Well, it could, but what would
variables.
change their tax bill would be what their property assessed for.
Assessment goes up.
Yeah,
there.
but the total revenues collected on like properties from the prior period is the same. We're just cutting up the pie into slightly different sized pieces.
You have the same answer, you've just changed the values of the other two variables in
Get
the
to the
equation.
end of it, right.
It will cost no one any more or any less on their tax bill.
On average.
Yes.
Yeah.
In aggregate,
Yeah.
In aggregate.
in aggregate.
Yeah.
Because what happened in Washington County in 2015 or 14 when the tax rate got set was commercial properties had held their value and residential properties had experienced a diminished value after the recession. And so what happened is the pie in revenue collected for Washington County merely shifted to be more paid by commercial properties than residential properties. Same dollars came in, but how the pieces of pie got cut up changed.
Everybody got that?
I feel like if we're talking about pie,
Would
let's
you
not
run,
forget
yeah,
it. That's-
would you run
that's
through
big
that one more
stuff.
time?
I think when they pay their tax bill, they're going to get
That's
some
right.
pie.
They get some
Oh.
pie.
Bingo, I hope.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We did a public hearing.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to speak for or against item in front of us? Seeing none? Yeah. Close the public hearing. Now, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion. Second, any other discussion?
Please.
Ms. Ms. Jenny, well, what was it about the pie again? No.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tamita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance 4644-17. An ordinance authorizing the city of Johnson City to enter into certain right-of-way access agreement with the Tennessee Independent Telecommunications Group LLC, doing business as Iris Networks LLC, which agreement is appended to this ordinance as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference herein as fully as if set forth verbatim, and to repeal all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, ready for your consideration on first reading. Mr. Mr.
Good
Evans.
evening.
This is a franchise ordinance, and it takes our standard agreement that we've been using for quite a while and passes it by ordinance. That's required by charter that franchises get approved by ordinance. What happens is a telecommunications company comes in, they want to work in our right-of-way. We want to make sure that we control and protect our right-of-way, and so we have them enter into this agreement. And this agreement contains all sorts of provisions for getting permits, for insurance, for protection of the right-of-way. And we've seen a few of these over the years, not many, but a few. And so it is before you all. I know it's long, it's 20 pages. And there should be somebody from the company to explain the project too. And so
Should be or is?
There he is.
well, I hope
There's
that he's
somebody, seems
here.
to be a gentleman
I
right
haven't
behind you.
met him yet. I've only spoken on the phone.
Well, before, let me just ask you, Mr. Epson, in honor of former Mayor Banyas, are we well protected for the protection of our
Yes.
asphalt assets?
Yes, we are.
All right.
We are very well.
Tell me how that is. Just real quick.
Well, first of all, they're going to be going underground
Okay.
for their entire project, whether it's required by us or not. But this agreement says if we require somebody to go underground, everybody to go underground, then they have to go underground in the same place. They're actually going to do the whole thing underground. And they have to go by our standards as far as if they do disturb the pavement, if they cut into anything, tear anything up, they have to build it back to our standards. And our standards are pretty strict. That in essence is how it is. They also have to have an awful lot of insurance.
Okay.
Petitioner here?
Apparently so.
Sir, if you'd step forward and tell us a little bit about your project.
Good evening.
You made the headlines of the newspaper today, so.
I noticed that.
And I hadn't read my packet yet, and so I learned a lot about it from the newspaper. So you want to tell us a little bit about your project and your approach to going underground? Rather than cutting the streets up, you're going to be using another.
That's correct. We will, a process called directional drilling. So there's very, very little disturbance above the ground. Very little. And the plans are we're going to build a new fiber route from Johnson City to Knoxville. And we provide services, we do not provide services to residents. It's
You're like wholesale, you sell fiber to the carriers.
That's correct.
So you're like building an interstate
That's correct.
for fiber.
Yes.
And you're starting on our eastern boundary. Are you going to Carter County and up that way, or?
It actually, from the TVA substation, let's see, that's Nathan Lynn Lane, then to Smith Lane.
I'm going to get Charlie to put up a map so they
Okay.
can see it. Yes.
Okay.
It does go down several of our major
Yes, East
roads.
Fairview, East Oakland.
Watauga, Market Street.
Hey, Angie, show him how to
Show me how
line
to do
that
this
up.
thing. I don't do as often as you.
He just got rid of his flip phone, so.
That's true. That's true.
Would you like for me to zoom in?
Please, ma'am. You might want to scroll up to the top, just hang right there. Where that terminates in the upper left-hand corner, adjacent to that is a TVA and Johnson City Power Board substation. What you see to the far right of that is the landfill. So I'll give you some idea where that is. That's, I don't remember the name of that street, but where it turns and runs towards the bottom of the page, it's paralleling Fairview Avenue. There you go, and it follows Fairview. There's probably go to the next click to the next slide, Angie, please.
Basically, it's West Market.
Yeah, that's okay.
And West Watauga to West Market.
East Oakland, East Watauga to West Market.
And you're going to run basically probably along tree lawns? Is that about where you're?
Well, within the easement.
Right.
Of course. And yes, with the directional drilling, we can go underneath tree roots or.
Several hundred feet and then pops it up again. And
That's
you got to
correct.
keep. So there will be spots along the way where you're making a little bit of a mess.
Maybe about every 4,000 feet.
Oh.
We have to come up and
Okay.
place a handhold.
So how much traffic will it affect? I mean, will you be blocking off lanes? I mean, the streets you're going down are pretty major travel streets.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
And we're used to that. And typically, if we're able to stay over in the easement with the equipment, on occasion, if we have to get over into the lane just a little bit, then we, of course, have traffic control.
What's your timeline for starting and finishing the project?
Well, first quarter of 2018 would be starting.
Cold here
And-
during that time.
Yeah, it is. We're used to that, too.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
The timeline was to start it in the first part of next year. How long would something like this take once you actually?
Through this section of the city, 30 days.
You'll finish all of it in 30 days?
Through
Really?
that section, yes.
You mean from east?
In the city.
Yeah,
All
through
the
the-
way out
through
Market
the-
Street?
Out to the city limit line, yes.
Wow.
That's efficient.
Yes, okay. I thought you were in here for 3 months or something.
These guys have done this before.
We have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Do I have
Thank
a
you.
motion?
We appreciate
Move
it.
approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tamita?
Yes.
The next order of business is ordinance number 4645-17. An ordinance releasing the city's right to reclaim all or any portion of an unopened portion of Beach Street on real property located within the corporate limits of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee. Ready for your consideration on first reading. Mr. Epps, I'll let you explain it.
A long time ago, 1982, the city of Johnson City abandoned and conveyed an unopened portion of Beach Drive and left in the deed wording that said that the city can reclaim that if it thinks it needs it. Well, the property owner, who actually owns it now, would like the city to remove that. And it's more than just a cloud on the title. It is it's a real impediment there. And so we circulated around a memo and got input from all the people who have utilities, and they said it's fine with them. And so we then come forward to you all with this ordinance. The thing was conveyed by ordinance. The language was put into a deed that was passed by ordinance. So we have to, if y'all decide to take it out, take it away, we have to do that by ordinance. And so that's really what this comes down to.
Will that require you to record a new instrument on the property?
I have it
releasing
right
that?
here.
Okay.
I've actually prepared it in anticipation. And it will be a release of this language in this deed from 1982.
And just to reiterate, staff sees no problems. in doing so.
Exactly. Staff has asked and gotten answers.
And just for clarification, it was never a street. We had right-of-way there.
Unopened.
But it was never opened. And if you go out there now, it is impossible to fathom that we would ever want to create another cut onto West Market out there at 11E. It would just create a mess.
Yes.
So
It
I
is
feel very
never-
confident we would not want it again.
Never been opened, never been developed as a street.
There would be no need to extend water or sewer through there either, at any time in the future.
Move for approval of ordinance 4645-17.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin, Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4639-17, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519 entitled, "An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from R4 Medium Density Residential District to B3 Supporting Central Business District, certain property located at 701 East Maple Street." Ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing.
Very good. Ms. Carey?
Yes, this rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission at the June meeting. Petitioner is Mr. Brian Winston, and the proposal is to renovate the existing structure that's located on the .08 acres of land on 701 East Maple Street and utilizing it as a retail business. A concept plan is required, and it is following this ordinance. The plan submitted depicts the location of the building, ingress and egress on Alabama Street, parking area, and the location of new restrooms that will be available to the users of the Tweetsy Trail. Neighborhood meeting was conducted on June 12th. No one spoke in opposition at the Planning Commission. Staff does recommend approval of this rezoning, although the land use plan does designate this area as being suitable for residential. The surrounding property has developed differently than expected. The Tweetsy Trail was developed, this type of business with the surrounding business there at the Tweetsy Trail, it will serve a useful purpose, and we do recommend approval.
Very good. Any questions? Just real quick question. We can't compel perpetual use of those bathrooms, right? I mean, that's a consideration now. They're going to do it, but a new owner, or he could just get tired of cleaning them and close them to the public, correct?
Actually, we can.
Okay.
Jimbo's working on a lease agreement as we speak.
All right.
Yes, sir.
But that can't be the consideration of the rezoning.
They can't be a part of the rezoning. That's a totally different matter, but I think we can compel
It
that.
is, because it's been mentioned more times than once. So, I mean, it is a consideration. It has been made a consideration as we
Is our
ponder
agreement,
this.
in our agreement, are we taking responsibilities for the upkeep of the bathrooms?
That is still being negotiated.
So presently, no. But that can't be a component of what we're considering tonight.
That's correct.
Although it could.
I move
We
for
just wouldn't
approval.
tell you.
Second.
Oh, that's right, we
We
have to
did-
do that first.
Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak in favor or against this ordinance? Seeing none, close the public hearing.
Now I move for approval.
Now,
Second.
now we have a motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
and Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of the required concept plan for the rezoning of property located at 701 East Maple Street from R4 to B3. Ms. Carrier?
Yes, the petitioner is proposing to renovate the existing structure and utilize it as a retail business. Does not intend to build any additional structures on the site and plans to maintain the current parking lot and ingress and egress onto Alabama Street. The renderings do show a privacy fence at the rear of the property, and the elevations show the building and the renovation of the bathrooms.
Does this require a public hearing?
No, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
They can serve pie.
Yeah, well, let's
Have
talk,
pie.
let's talk about it in terms of pie, right? It's,
Thank you.
How many, Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Next ordinance for consideration is ordinance number 4641-17. An ordinance to amend Article 3, nonconforming provisions, Article 4, Section 4.10, exceptions on setbacks, Article 6, Section 6.10.3.2C, rear yard setback for RP zoning districts, and Section 6.33, Gateway Overlay District of the zoning code of the City of Johnson City, is ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing.
Ms. Carrier, please translate that.
Yes, sir. First, on non-conforming lots. This amendment that we propose is that if there's a public use or need for right-of-way and a dedication, that automatically the property owner would be relieved of going to BZA, that it would be make that an act of public use, so the proposed text would make the property conforming for zoning purposes and eliminate the need for a variance. And this is for that purpose of those people that are dedicating something for a public use shouldn't have to go before the BZA. This is something that would eliminate something that's happened before as far as auto zone goes.
Okay.
The next application is the location of the non-permanent garbage disposal equipment. Currently, this section provides structures that are permanent, and it allows waivers for those that encroach on the setbacks of principal structures. Non-permanent garbage disposal is not a principal structure, it's an accessory structure, but also we wanted to add the language that if a permanent garbage disposal equipment shall be set at least 20 feet back from a residential property. That protects the residential areas that are along a commercial property. So that is recommended for approval. The third zoning district change as far as setbacks for RP zoning. Currently, the zone requires that the rear yard setback on exterior lots shall be equal to the required setback in the adjacent non-RP zoning. The definition of an exterior lot is a corner lot, and I know the intent was to be the adjacent lots along the RP. Therefore, we wanted to change that language from the corner lot to make that the rear yard setback on lots adjoining a non-RP district shall be the same as the setback of the adjacent yard of the non-RP district, provided the rear yard setback in the RP district shall not be required to be greater than 25 feet. All other lots not adjoining a non-RP district shall maintain a rear yard setback for drainage and utility easements, rather than saying the exterior lots. Also, on the last one is the numbering of the Gateway Overlay District. Currently, it is labeled 6.31. Also, the University Parkway overlay is 6.31. We want to amend the Gateway overlay to be 6.33. There is no change other than the numbering.
Were there any other housekeeping items we could have thrown into this resolution for clarity?
No, sir, I think not.
Show up at some point.
Or pie.
Place where we can keep pies.
Pie. How about pie safe? Good. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Carrier?
I guess the only question I would have for 410.5, do we currently have no setback requirements for these?
That's correct.
That is correct.
All right, so that's improving the situation.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Depends on which side of the lot line you're at.
We need a public hearing.
Whether or not sometimes I'm supposed
All right.
to spill my garbage against
Well,
someone's property.
we need a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Let's go ahead and open that up. Anybody here to speak in favor or opposition to this? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock? Yes. Mayor Tuita?
Yes. Mr. Peterson?
Okay, the next item on your agenda is consideration of review and approval of the FY 17-18 three-year HUD CDBG Home Annual Consolidated Action. This does require a public hearing. Mr. Trent?
And just to give you a little bit of overview of how we come up with the plan, HUD requires us to assess the needs, get public input, and then come to the city commission and vote on it. So we opened up the program and tried to get agencies to tell us what their needs were. So we had quite a few agencies come and present to the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board of what their needs were. And once they did that, then the advisory board voted on different projects, and we came up with a ranking. So that's what we came up with in the plan, is all of the projects that the Housing Advisory Board wanted to see go for it. Now, this is just a plan. There's any kind of project would be brought to the commission and actually voted on individually. So they want us to make the plan broad so we can be a little more flexible in case something comes up we want to do during the year.
Very good. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have some comments that I want to make at this point. When I came on the commission 5-6 years ago, we had in place in-house a director for housing and community development. And during that period of time, we seemed to have a very definite focus about how we use community development block grant monies and other monies that were available to us through the Home Consortium. The emphasis was to rehabilitate and reconstruct homes that were owned by people that couldn't afford to do anything with them. The monies were applied in that fashion. Guidance was provided by that individual to the advisory board. And at that time, we were also spending the monies that we had available to us, and they were going into the community, not ending up sitting in the bank. And the projects that we anticipated as a commission would get done, the rehabilitations we anticipated that would get done were being done and weren't. The conversation was not coming back to us as we cannot get contractors to do these projects. The Housing Authority has a lot of responsibility. They have a very important responsibility in my estimation. I support what the Housing Authority has done in most areas. I think that it is problematic, and I would certainly like to have staff management reconsider whether or not it's appropriate to continue to ask the Housing Authority to take on this responsibility as well, or whether we ought not to take that back under roof and hire our own manager to handle these issues. I think that the use of the monies and the advice to the advisory board about how these monies can most effectively be employed to accomplish the things that as a city we want to see accomplished. I think it's better served that this not continue to be under the Housing Authority, but that it be brought back in-house. I am concerned with this particular plan, and even though the advisory board is the one that developed it, I'm not sure that I can support it. The reason for that is we see a certain portion of $900,000 roughly going to homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction, where the homeowner who owns a piece of property is the one who's benefiting from it, and it's not costing him anything, and the city is seeing the advantage to seeing pieces of property that are within certain neighborhoods that are falling into disrepair getting taken care of and enhancing the value of that portion of the neighborhood. Only a portion of the monies are going towards that. We see, again, a portion of the money going to nonprofit almost $200,000 of that going to nonprofit home ownership rehabilitation. Yes, it does accomplish rehabilitation, but if it's going to be employed in the same way that it is for Habitat for Humanity, then we're basically taking monies that we should be, in my opinion, applying directly into our community, and we're giving it to a nonprofit, which in a way is a grant to that nonprofit rather than accomplishing what I think we would like to see accomplished in the community. What concerns me the most in this is not the administrative cost, because I think when you look at that, typically with the First Tennessee Development District, there's about a 14% amount of the monies that ends up going into administration, and then, of course, we would have the cost of an administrator here that now is going to the Housing Authority. So I don't really have a lot of concern with those fees, although they add up to a lot. They add up to about a fifth of the monies that are available. But what I have a lot of concern about, I just don't really understand, even though I've had a conversation with Appalachian Credit Union about their desire to have monies obligated to financial education and counseling. $102,000 of $900,000, or roughly 12%, 13% of the dollars just going into that. I'd rather put that money into housing needs than into education. Maybe a small portion of that into counseling is warranted, but I think that's excessive. So I'm not sure how the advisory board came up with this list, how they came up with what money went to what. I'd like to know a little bit more about why and how and what the process was. I wonder whether or not the advisory board is not getting very good counseling as far as to what the objective should be with these dollars, and they're just kind of shotgunning that money out there. I'm uncomfortable with it.
Well, let me speak to the reason that we've opened it up. I mean, other than HUD requires us to assess the needs. When we took over, we found out there was an excess of $600,000 from previous years that hadn't been allocated. So we were, under the gun to spend this money, and there's timeliness tests that HUD requires us to meet as far as spending. So we ended up with our new allocation over $1 million to spend. The First Tennessee Development District, we're doing homeowner rehab is definitely the priority of the project. So I've been in discussion with them on what their capacity is, and they are at capacity with all the other projects they take on for the other counties. This is really all they can do. So we had to really look for other means to get this money on the street, or we were going to lose it. So, this is definitely just a plan, and your decision is what actually we will do. So, but that's really the reason, we had excess money that was going to be lost if we didn't spend it.
Brad, I've heard different conversations and different comments about how real that threat of losing monies truly is. And I have a lot of problem with spending money in ways that don't make a lot of sense to me, even if it's a matter that I'm going to lose the money. Obviously, I don't want to lose the money. I have priorities in how I think that should be spent. And I've indicated what my primary priority would be. There's been some other conversation on the part of the commission, and I wasn't supportive of it earlier, but I can tell you I'd much rather see it going into infrastructure like lighting and that sort of thing than going into financial and educational counseling and going to other organizations where I don't have any control about how those monies are applied and whether or not they're applied in a way that I think is most effective for what I'm trying to accomplish in the community. So, if it's a matter that we've got to spend this money, and that would be my first question is, I have heard different things about how real that threat really is, whether or not, if we don't spend it now, we definitely lose it. I've heard some indication that's not really so. And if it is in fact the case, then I would certainly open up the discussion, and Mayor Brock was a very firm proponent of doing this, by using that money to provide some lighting in some of these neighborhoods to provide safety. That's not my number one priority, but it's a higher priority than a lot of what I see here.
Peterson, how time sensitive is this? Is this not something we could address in a workshop setting? We didn't get a chance to really get into this at all, except
The deadline to have our plan is August 16th.
We can do it next
We have
week.
time.
We have time.
Yes.
so let's
And it
have
just
this
needs
at
to
a...
pass on one go-through.
This is not an ordinance. It requires one approval,
Let's
yes.
get, would that be fine?
Yeah, we've got to make a motion to put it on the table till our next meeting and schedule a workshop.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and I think, I don't know how widely we want to open that up, but from my standpoint, it'd be nice to have some input from Appalachian, who wants the counseling dollars, to have some input from the advisory board as far as what they're looking at.
I think a joint meeting between the commission and the advisory board would be very, very helpful.
And there needs to be some details behind these numbers.
The advisory board meets Thursday, next Thursday. If
Let them
that,
know they need to come to our next agenda review meeting with some backup plans for this proposal. Is that fair?
I mean, I can relate to the advisory board too, the goals of the commission. I mean, really, this is your plan, this is your money. So we spend it how you want to. I just took the information that was given to me and compiled it and brought it to you.
And I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to be critical of you. I do appreciate what the Housing Authority does in many ways, and you're a very integral part of that. But I have some problems with what we see in front of us.
And I want your input.
You want to meet early?
The agenda.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, I just think when you're talking about this many hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot of what CBDG can do is $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 projects, and Habitat for Humanity emphasizes getting low-income people into homeownership. Well, we have a whole lot of low-income people who are in homeownership who are in a perilous spot to lose that for many reasons, and we may be able to shore them up with just little infusions.
I think we need to get the development district in the room too, to speak on their capacity too. I mean, if there's other ways, that's why we expanded it really to the Appalachia Service Project and Habitat, is to try to expand the capacity to get homes fixed.
Yeah, so what we will do is ask the advisory board and then whoever else you feel would be wise to be in the room to join us at 5 p.m. At our next agenda meeting, which would be
July 31.
July 31st.
Yeah.
Who's the chair of the advisory board now? Do you know? Colin.
And I probably still need to open it up for comments from the public.
We're not voting on it.
We're not, I mean,
We're going to defer it, so,
The public hearing was advertised,
okay.
so, I mean, it would be good to just open it up for
For just
legal
comments.
purposes.
Oh, okay, let's see, Ms. Cantler, Mr. Wilson, do you want to open up the public hearing? Would you all like to speak on this?
Mayor, I would recommend that you not close the public hearing,
Very
but
good.
continue it through
Yep.
your next meeting 2 weeks from this evening.
So we will open up public hearing, we will leave it open until our next meeting.
And then do we just need a motion to put this on the table to the August 3rd meeting?
We'll automatically do that if you defer action on the.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good. And you'll advertise that, Ms. Carrier?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We will need action for you all to defer it in order to get it on the August 3rd meeting.
Oh,
Yes.
so you do need a motion, it just
So we
isn't
move to defer it to that
That
meeting.
sounds like a motion.
a motion
Second.
to defer.
I misunderstood what you said, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
We have a motion and
I
a
was just
second
asking if there
to
was something I
defer to
could do
the
that-
August 3rd meeting. Any further discussion?
Just forward.
Ms. Jennings, how many pieces of pie? did that?
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
If only there was
Mayor
somewhere we could get
Tomita.
some pie.
Yes.
This was 5
We need
pieces in this.
3.14 pieces of pie.
Your next order of business is to consider approval of using PEP bond proceeds to resurface parking lots at Columbus Powell and Henry Johnson. As you will recall, we issued $3 million in bonds last November to make improvements to roofs and parking lots. The roof work is underway, and this would authorize the approval to spend $117,000 to redo those two parking lots, which are in a state of structural failure.
Very good. Do you have any questions for Mr. Peterson? Do we have a motion?
Move with.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Next order of business is to consider approval of the design request for what is being called the Downtown Breezeway. Can we call this like Section 1, Diana?
Phase 1.
Phase
Yeah.
1, since we got a Phase 2 coming? Okay. Ms. Candler, if you could explain the project, please, ma'am.
And sorry you were last.
I think you do it intentionally. No problem. I'll whiz through here. So the
say
Design Committee of the Johnson City Development Authority has requested that we want to do an update, a refresh of the breezeway. It's a very important element. When we bring site selectors in, it has been a less than attractive element in our on our main street, and so we're going with the concept that Project for Public Spaces recommends that you try and you add elements such as seating, outdoor cafes, public art, things like that can they don't have to be a huge investment, but will make a big difference. And so we have worked with the designers from Reclaimed Inspired Goods. This is their design board, inspiration board. They want to create an area that people will gather, engage, and linger by adding lighting, seating, place to park bikes, and interactive art. This is some of the items that they would recommend putting in there. We would put 8 sconce lights in the area, cafe lights hanging over the structural arms. The walls would be painted charcoal gray, as well as the structural arms. Planters would be put at the base of each structural arms to bring greenery and life in there. Several tables and chairs, both 2 tops and 4 tops, and then 2 pieces of interactive art, one of which will be the typewriter seating area, and then something else that would be placed on the wall so that it would be interactive, that people could use to take their pictures and show their friends where they are. Here's some of the suggestions of just different things that could be, that is different examples of interactive art. You'll see the one at the top. I think that's a really creative way. They painted the balloons on there, but then you sit down like you're holding it. So several different options. The feet print would be a recommendation of something that would go in the second breezeway, hence Phase 2. We've seen the typewriter keys, which would be a seating element, but it's also an artistic piece as well. This would be the second breezeway, which is Phase 2. We probably don't have the funds to do this one, but it's hopefully will be done within the next 8 to 10 months. That's the breezeway that's adjacent to Massengill's. It would be painted a creamy beige, add new lighting as well, maybe some greenery at the entrance. We would ask to keep the canopy there, and then change there's a sign there currently, and then we would take the art frames that were in the first breezeway and move them in there and added new art to that space. And there's a drawing of what the first breezeway would look like, with the chair, with the seating, the interactive art. We would recommend moving the recycling center closer to the electrical panel, and then add in a new bike rack as well.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Candler?
Yes, my first question would be, what is it exactly that you're asking us to approve this evening? One of the issues, I guess the thing that comes to the fore for me on this, we've had a lot of back and forth about Historic Zoning Commission approval for interactive art in this space, and facilitating that occurring without opening the whole downtown up to murals that we have no control over. And where do we stand with that? And are you asking for approval of the particular interactive art at all? Or can we approve this without
We can
anything that has
approve-
to do with art?
We can. I know Historic Zoning, they have that on their agenda. They've met with Public Art, I believe, and maybe City Attorney. They have that on their agenda for next week. But the main thing that we're requesting is the walls are yours. The walls are the city's, and so we're requesting to allow them to be painted, and that we be able to place these items on city property.
The seating and the
Seating,
tables
the
and that sort of thing.
Typewriter, the bike rack, the
Yes.
sconces, all that.
And we do ask that the city staff, Public Works staff, would install the wall sconces and lights.
I think this space needs to be cleaned up. I certainly appreciate that the JCA has been involved in bringing this up and moving forward on it, because a lot of times things get talked about, that never happens. So it's great that they have. I think that this will be an improvement to us. I'm a little concerned about the seating with the elements that we have problems with liking to park themselves in other areas of our downtown. I don't know how you're going to control how this space is utilized, but seats and tables can be removed at some point if they need to be. So I don't have a problem with going ahead with any of it, except for I think the interactive art piece on the wall, until we get that clarified through historic zoning, and we find a way to be able to do it that doesn't open up areas of downtown where we don't want this sort of thing to that occurring. I'd recommend approval, just pulling that one element out.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this concept as it's been designed has been done by one of the downtown business owners who works in that field
Correct.
at cost.
Yes. So
Her
everything.
time and effort has been, go ahead.
Yes, so the designing, Reclaimed Inspired Goods, so their designers have done all this work at cost, and they are actually willing to order everything at cost, at their cost.
And that was part of their response to your request
Yes,
for proposal.
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
that,
We sent an RFP out to several architects and engineering and landscape architect firms, and the designers from Reclaimed Inspired Goods offered to do it free of charge.
as a particularly unique stakeholder, because this is very close
Well,
to.
and they walk through that area. That area has bothered them, and the area, the other breezeway by Massengills. Their business is adjacent to it, and they really want to be a part of the downtown community and make sure that things happen and there's a good design to it.
Commissioner Van Brockman did miss our hour-long discussion of this on Monday night. So we had the same concerns.
Okay.
It was about.
Was yours a motion?
Yes, that was a motion.
That'd be a second.
Would you mind repeating the motion? I
The
apologize.
motion is to move forward with this project, with the exception of the wall interactive art, until we have clarification from the Historic Zoning Commission on that and the impact of that. So all elements, move approval of all elements moving forward with the exception of that.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
May I ask for a point of clarification? You mentioned allowing work on the city's walls. In our meeting Monday night, you also mentioned a potential desire to cut a doorway into that wall out onto the breezeway. Is what you're asking for tonight include the doorway?
No, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Why not?
Because I'm not that property owner, but he has indicated that he is willing to do that, but that would be his responsibility to petition the city, because it would go between the city wall and his wall.
Okay. Very good.
It just, for Commissioner Van Brocklin's benefit, we also discussed how with the seating here on city property, if the adjoining business owner wants to do a doorway, then they could do outdoor dining there and utilize that seating and better control the turnover and the utilization of that outdoor furniture that way. So I think that's still a potential development along with this particular project that could be very, very beneficial. to
Okay,
everybody.
how do you accomplish that? The property is owned by the city, but you have a private firm utilizing it. Do they really have the opportunity to tell somebody they can't be there when they're simply utilizing a piece of property that doesn't belong to them?
Other sidewalk dining.
You've got Main Street Pizza, the little tavern on the corner. We have a number of Newmans have outdoor dining on city property. And
We allow them
we have an
to
agreement with them that
disinvite
gives
folks.
them the authority to control that space. Yes.
Well, and I think the
Well,
other
that's
thing that
good.
happens is the regular churn of activity makes the environment less hospitable
Too long.
to just
To loiter.
hanging out there all day, too. There's just a natural movement that isn't there now when it's in the shadows and in
Correct.
a blind corner. Yes.
It's an easy, well, and now that the canopy's removed, it's not been that convenient, but it was a very nice, quiet place to lay down and rest your head.
Well, I think you're playing very fast and loose with a nice, quiet place.
Thank you for allowing me to explain that further, Commissioner Van Brock.
Slightly better than.
Very good. Any other questions, comments?
I just want to thank Reclaimed and the
Yes.
people there for what they're doing. It's just great to see how our citizens are coming together in the development of downtown and giving of their time and energy.
So go
volunteering for
downtown and do a little shopping there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to rehash a conversation that was held on Monday evening.
No, we're happy to do it for you. Yeah.
It wasn't on TV, so
That's
we're
right.
good.
That's right. All right, any other discussion? Just make sure that D and T are down there really good. 'Cause-
Did you make is this a vote?
On the typewriter.
We need to vote.
Yeah, call roll, please. Yeah.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brook?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Let's get this in front of the historic zoning as soon as possible.
I noticed it was on their agenda.
Okay.
Which is next.
Discussion
Discussion item.
And then it will be a public hearing at the August Historic
Zoning Commission with a vote.
But now obviously work's already underway because canopy's gone. Will other work start soon on that area? Okay.
So you could start painting this.
Yes, I will send a
Anytime
request
now.
to Mr. Penzola. Public Works has agreed to clean the brick, so they can power wash everything, and then we will get with our painters. And then there is some existing conduit there, and there probably will have to be some conduit put down one side for the wall sconces.
Did you mention power washing, Mr. Peterson? There are some restaurants down there that take stuff in and out of their back doors, and we have a sidewalk over on Main Street that is just grease. So it either needs to be power washed by the city or...
It has been power washed. I don't know, and I think they have
You know what I'm
tried
talking about,
putting, I
don't
do.
you? Yes.
I think they have tried putting
Really
some
bad.
type of cleaning element there.
It is what it is, Ms. Cantler.
It is,
But it's a public sidewalk, and it's really...
yeah, I don't
It
know
smells?
if there's something that could be done to resurface that section of the sidewalk and then enforce the property owner to maybe put mats out.
I mean, it smells, it's grease is what it is.
It is, it's grease.
Yeah. It's built up there, and it's just...
But it's the
Go down
worst.
there.
There's no other restaurant that has that. And
To
maybe
that
just
level.
because it's that entrance and other restaurants have back entrances, but it is,
It's a public sidewalk right there. on
I'll see if we
Main
can
Street.
work with the business in question and get them to help in correctifying the problem it appears they have created. And we'll get it addressed.
Rectifying,
I like
that's
that.
a new word.
You work for me, rectifying.
It's like a caffeinasium.
That's it, a caffeinasium.
Thank you. I've been meaning to bring that up, and you toggled my mind on it.
Charlie, you are hereby requested to tell Penzola to go down there and see them and see if we can get that thing cleaned up, please, sir. I'd appreciate it.
Very good. Mr. Peterson?
All right, city manager's report, financials, a very detailed explanation of financials are in your packet, and I'm going to, for starters, ask Janet to explain where we are revenue-wise and closing out the fiscal year, and give us a review of financials, which would be through the end of May.
Yes.
So we will still have 1 month to book in some cases and 3 months to book in other cases, depending on what the subject matter is. So Janet?
Correct. I want to direct your attention to the financial statistics because this is going to cover pretty much 2/3 of our revenues. And you're going to see some good news in there. And I actually have an update to what we have in here because I got new numbers this week. On property taxes, you're going to see that our billings are up $586,000 over last year, and we have collected a good part of that. We've already collected 97.5% of what we've billed, and that is our target for the year. We usually target about 97 to 98% of what we bill during the current year to collect during the current year, so that's a really high number. And we actually have 3 more months of revenues that we'll get to count here because according to accounting law, you get to reach out 60 days past. You don't have your traditional accounts receivables in governmental accounting. So we get to reach out 2 months past year end and pull in July and August receipts on property taxes. So we're going to finish well ahead of budget on property taxes. That's for the current year taxes. On delinquent taxes, we've collected a little less than last year, but that is just by virtue of the fact that our old accounts receivables on delinquent taxes are dwindling thanks to the chancellor. I actually met with him a couple of weeks ago with regard to some tax sale matters. So, I passed along the compliments to him on the hard work he's doing, and he still has a very aggressive approach, and he wants to get everything caught up, and we're nearly caught up. As far as local sales tax, in your report, I've reported through April retail sales, but I'm happy to say that this week I received updated numbers. Those are online with the state now, so I was able to pull May's retail sales. That means we'll have 1 more month. We'll have June to report next month. So for the month of May, we were up 6.95%, so essentially 7% from May of last year to May of this year, or $112,000. Year to date, that puts us at 2.88%, or essentially 3%, May year to date versus last year May year to date, or $540,000. Now, how does that translate to budget? Because obviously we did budget some increase from year to year. But we are even $211,000 ahead of the growth we budgeted.
So what was the actual May collection?
I only noted the increase. I
was just curious.
I'll email that to you.
Okay.
I can email that. I have it in a spreadsheet. So you have any? I have it in a pie chart.
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, then in that case, I don't need it.
I want it.
Do you have any questions
Miss
on
Jennings
those?
made it funny tonight.
I'm not an accountant 24 hours a day.
Since our sales tax is, coming in nice and robust, how's our hotel motel tax? Are we seeing any?
Oh, they're robust as well. We're doing very well.
Excellent.
The 2% has brought in over $500,000. And, that's been diverted over to the debt service fund.
That's exceeding budget as well.
Yes, it's looking very healthy. I'll switch over here. Yes, we have collected 99% of our hotel motel tax budget through 11 months. 1.9, $1,950,000 versus $1,962,000 year to date. Overall, I won't go line by line because we'll have a better picture in another month and a half of where we ended the year. Revenues are looking very healthy in all areas. I really don't see any overall miss, even though, you're going to have ups and downs across categories because it is an estimate when you do the budget. On the expenditure side, all the departments, again, year after year, they do a great job of staying within budget, and I don't see any problems whatsoever with the departments coming in on budget. Public safety in particular, they're doing very well compared to budget. Those are your largest departments. Public Works, they always do a really good job of coming in your budget. I'm happy to address any questions you have. If you want me to go through some things in more detail, I'm happy to.
Questions? No? Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Yeah.
Any update on closing out the year end? Physical inventories, the auditors are starting their work, all that kind of things?
Inventories are finished. The auditors will not be in until September. We're probably going to run a week or two later this year because I'm down 2 people right now. But everybody's pulling together and working really hard. I'm digging in there and I'm doing some things too and helping. We don't anticipate any major problems with closing the year. So we're just going to work toward the goal of getting the auditors in here by mid-September and finishing out in the same manner we have in the past.
Thank you, ma'am. This past weekend, our new fire chief, Jim Stables, was in town. Without getting into a lot of his personal business in public, he was able to sell his house in a day, and he and his family came up last weekend and looked at over 20 homes, made an offer, and have a contract on a home. My family and their family spent some time together this weekend. We also took them out and did a tour of Indian Trail School. They have a rising 5th grader next year, and Mr. Jacobs and several of the staff members out at Indian Trail were very gracious in showing them around and explaining the system, and they were very pleased with that. We really look forward to getting Jim up here and getting him started. He was able to spend a little time, from what I understand, down at Station 3 talking to some of the guys, and Chief Harrison has spent a lot of time communicating back and forth with Jim, getting him ready to come in. He will arrive for work on September the 5th, which is the day after Labor Day. That gives him time to work out his notice. His wife and daughter will be coming up in time to start school, so I think they're getting up here the weekend after school starts on August the 2nd, whatever date that is, and I think the intent is to start school the Monday of the first full week of school. So we certainly want to welcome them to town, and we're very pleased to have Chief Stables on board and getting fit in. In fact, if I could, since we've got a room full of Rotarians here, if someone could help me get on the speaking engagement calendar for the noon and the morning Rotaries. He's very anxious to get out and talk to civic groups and get to meet people, and if
When is he going to be available?
he would be available towards the end of September, we probably ought to give him a couple of 3 weeks to get his feet on the ground, but that would be really helpful. He'd like to do that.
We can work that out.
Okay, thank you. As everyone's aware, Mayor Tomita, Commissioner Fowler, and I had a very successful and productive trip to Asia the last 2 weeks. We had the opportunity to meet and make relationships with some folks that we didn't know, and we had a chance to strengthen some relationships with some investors and some people that we have interacted with some in the past. We were able to have several meetings while we were gone, and I'm very pleased to report that there is more energy, more enthusiasm, and I think a greater likelihood of this project coming to fruition. As it stands right now, the original concept of a campus on Market Street isn't dead, but it's what should we say, morphed into a little different variation to where the timeline to put that project together was too long to accommodate the needs and the desires of some of the investors and the potential users of that facility. So as another option, we have begun the search for and the evaluation of some existing buildings in the city that might work to at least get us into phase one to get this program up and running. We spoke with two individuals in particular in Beijing that were interested in coming over this fall sometime and looking at the facilities and the programs that the Stones are running, with the potential of them bringing perhaps 1,000 or more student athletes over here over the course of a year or a summer for 2-week camps, 6-week camps, all kinds of variations thereof. We spoke with a representative in Taipei of the, and Mayor, help me out with the proper name here, the
Training Center.
National Training Center for Taiwan,
Which is the Olympic
which is
Training
the
Center.
Olympic equivalent in Taiwan. And they were very excited about the potential of becoming involved with Johnson City and the Stones program here. There has been some follow-up conversation with Jeff Shue since our visit, and additional interest expressed in perhaps there being more investors than originally anticipated interested in investing in the facility here in town and getting this up and running. I've always felt it was a great project. You all know me well enough to know that I tend to be a little slow in saying, yeah, this is really going to be something that's going to work. I'm really there now. I think this thing's really going to work. This is going to be a good program. I think it's something that will have an equal to or greater impact than all of the youth athletic tournaments that we're currently hosting. This thing really has the potential to bring hundreds, if not thousands, of people to Johnson City for various reasons. The conversation has expanded into, is there the possibility of student athletes coming over here and enrolling in ETSU or Milligan College, to the potential for athletes to come over here and maybe move with their families and relocate to Johnson City, and hopefully that could grow into the opening of new businesses. And I'm going to defer to the Mayor and Commissioner Fowler to add what I have forgotten in my recap here.
I think you covered it pretty thoroughly, but just to reiterate, we've got a great asset with the sports science department over at ETSU, and it's a marketable asset that can be monetized for the university and for the city. And the quicker we can get that rolling, I think the better. Time is of the essence, and I'd like to compliment Mr. Peterson on a really good audible call in a meeting that got really uncomfortable when we were talking about timelines, and suggested, hey, why don't we do it quicker rather than sooner than later, and saw everybody's face light up. You could see the whole attitude change. So I think again, we got a lot of work to do, but I think we got the right people in place to do it. So let's get busy.
And I think even the conversation with Jeff Shue afterwards, he sent out on different media to people that he's done business with, or he has tennis camps or baseball camps with, and he had 2,100 parents interested in sending their kids after a couple of days of being over here, and he sent that out. He had that many responses on people that want to come here. So it is literally thousands that want to come here and participate. So I think we did a really good thing, even though I wasn't sure, especially when I was coming back, that I enjoyed it as much as I thought, but it was quite
a long ride.
It's a long way over there and back, so.
And one final thing, I sent you all an email on this. Unfortunately, we lost one of our premier employees this week, Jim Sipe over in the Water Sewer Department, an almost 35-year employee who was absolutely an exemplary employee, just a great role model and a great person, passed away this week. And we're sure going to miss Jim, and we certainly want to keep his family and many, many friends in our thoughts and prayers during this time of loss.
We'll do that. Any comments from the commission?
Be thinking about these high school football players. They started Tuesday in shoulder pads and helmets in 100-degree, feels like 100 outside almost. So we're trying to make sure they stay healthy, but be thinking about them when they're out hitting each other in this weather.
Well, I just want to thank y'all for your trip. I know, having worked in that part of the world, it is it's a little strenuous to go over there and stay that time, but the value to Johnson City, if this project can really be pulled off, and no doubt there's a lot of complexity to it, but we have an incredible asset here of Dr. Mike and Meg Stone, and I think everybody in the Olympic training world recognize that. And here's an opportunity to really create an Olympic training center that puts Johnson City on the map. And so I think if we can get all the puzzle pieces together, it's a great move for our community, and I'm behind it.
Maybe one more thing. There have been some people wondering why we went that far to spend that much. And there's a lot of things with the relationships they have a different culture. And our going over there and talking with them and discussing this and even coming up with a possible way to do this faster than 5 or 7 years to build this thing, they could go anywhere in the world and go do this. But we have the Stones here in town, and we let those people know that the city is behind them doing this program. And I think it made a big difference for us to actually be there in person and talk with these people and get them to be interested and get Jeff to come over himself. And he's sending these other people from China and from Taiwan over here to come and see this place. And I think they will be more impressed now coming themselves to see where we live and what we have to offer them. And, I really didn't want to make that trip, but I think it was important for us to go over there to get that interest in those people and to show them that we want that personal relationship, so they will do that with us. So,
if I may add something to that too, I'd like to thank those of you who went for going so that I didn't have to. and then also add that I think in addition to showing them the support of the city, you had an opportunity to see firsthand more directly what they're involved in. And no web meeting or conference call lets you ascertain whether the person you're talking to is talking a good game and has nothing to back it up, or actually does have the means to back it up and has something going on a scale that is of note to the city of Johnson City. And I think you came back with a very keen sense that they are everything that they have represented themselves to be as far as what they are doing in China. And that is valuable information to have as you continue a conversation like this.
Well, and they gave us information that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And one of them that we spoke with has a $450 million budget that they need to spend on helping them get athletes better trained and such.
Well, I know a city where they...
Sort of what we told them at that point. It's like, we can help you spend some of your money over here. So.
That's right. They know one of the cities that would welcome them. And, if we're to get, not to belabor it, but if we're trying to get in and be competitive in traditional sports training, you're going to do that in Florida and California where they have large organizations, IMG, that does that. What we have here is a beautiful location, a safe location, and then we have something that only 14 other communities in the country have, and that's an Olympic training site, with personnel that are, as we saw when we were over there, they're legit too. they're rock stars over there.
These
And,
guys are like the Beatles in that world.
they're taking pictures and signing autographs, and
Everybody wanted to be
we're
part of it.
standing over in the corner. Everybody's going, "Who are these guys over here?" Right? But so yeah, it's a viable plan. We've got a lot of work to do because there are a lot of moving parts. But again, there were always critics of how you go about doing things, and we'll accept that and just show them the result and take it from there. So, anything else? Everybody have a good night. Thank you very much.
Stay cool.
Stay cool.
I'm playing the golf.